Welcome to the first ever episode of Secret Afterparty. What is this? What are we doing? And who are you that decided to watch us? Lots of questions, maybe some answers. We don't know what it is. Is it a YouTube channel? Is it a podcast? Is it a show? It can be anything because right now it's absolutely nothing. So, Secret Afterparty, first of all, the name, I've been thinking about lots of different types of names. For some months now. And I didn't know, whether to have a more just something cool or something more underground or something more pop or, something more serious or something more minimal. So, how many syllables do you want? What kind of viewer are you talking to? So lots of different things and, different types of criteria came into choosing the name. Because you don't want it to be too long. And even though Secret Afterparty is just two words, even though the second word is two words combined, after and party, still, even though it's two words, it's more syllables than you would expect. I think it's like 6, right? Secret After Party. Yeah, it's 6. It's pretty long compared to most other names, especially in terms of podcast names or YouTube channels. So that was the biggest surprise, was after I came up with the name. Obviously, the first thing you do after you come up with a name is you go online and you check it. You check if the social media is available. You check if the website's available. Whatever, the usual, brand thing when you think of a name or a word or something that you want to use for something creative or in business, right? You check online. That's the first thing you do. So surprisingly, everything was free. Nobody had previously used Secret Afterparty in a YouTube channel or in social media or stuff like that. So I was really surprised because, I've been to a lot of parties, after parties, events, and I was very surprised that that was actually still available. So that was the biggest surprise. Is there a meaning behind it? Well, I wanted to come up with a name that would represent more or less what I wanted to create, I guess. Because sometimes when you're creating something, whether it's a YouTube channel or a story or a piece of art, it's a great idea. I do it to, don't start with the design, right? Start with, the philosophy or behind it, or the meaning behind it, or your feelings about that thing or about something related to that thing that you're trying to create or design. So that was my starting point. The starting point for finding the name and creating the name, apart from, the technical stuff like how many syllables, how many words, is it understandable to people? Is it too obscure? Is it too underground? Is it too cliche? Stuff like that. Apart from those things, in terms of like meaning and, creativity behind the name itself, it doesn't have like a crazy story behind it or anything like that. It's more about so I think it was Werner Fassbinder, one of my favorite film directors. He was in that generation of the 70s in Germany, and he did lots of films. He was doing like 1 or 2 films per year, writing it, producing it, directing it, acting in it. Warhol would invite him to his factory in the 80s in New York. So, but he died young because he was like, working crazy. And one of the cool things that I remember he said, I don't know if it was one of his interviews or one of his books, was when I create a film, each film I create is a single brick because I am trying to build a house. So I love that kind of meaning, right? It's kind of like, I think it was the French architect Le Corbusier also spoke about, how you are the city, or, the relationship between the individual and the environment as this kind of creative, spiritual synergy. So I wanted to create this as I would create a physical space in terms of, because especially now, it's all digital. We live in a digital age. We're already spending more time staring at digital screens instead of, touching each other, looking into each other's eyes, physical interaction with, whoever, the guy at the supermarket or your best friend. We lost that touch. So by doing this, I'm doing something totally digital, right? You're talking about YouTube, which is Google, which is Alphabet, which is all artificial intelligence, which is, which is the whole world that they created, right? The world of today. So knowing that I'm doing something completely, digital or virtual also, I wanted to build my own house. So Secret Afterparty is as if it was my own house. I hope it's also your house. I welcome you to this new house. Each video I put out, I will try to put out brick by brick and build that house. And I want that house to be comfortable. I want that house to be cozy. It's not a coincidence that I'm laying back on a couch because, I thought about, how serious or how professional or how, whatever other synonym you might think of in that space do I want to be, or do I just want to lay back, kick back, chill out, relax with my friends that are listening and watching? So that was part of the philosophy behind it. How can you create something that gives you that feeling, that emotion of comfort, of wanting to be a little bit sleepy, a little bit lazy, a little bit indulgent, the little things in life, the little pleasures in life. There's no big pleasures in life. The big pleasures in life are only in our expectations. But once you reach those expectations, you realize it's all the same. It's about the small, beautiful moments when you have that special moment with your best friend, or you have that special moment hiking in the mountains or surfing, catching that big wave at Stinson Beach, and you're enjoying the sunshine and life is good. Because let's be honest, life is already difficult enough. So why not make it a little bit easier? Why not at least try to make it a little bit easier? No one is going to help you make your life better if you don't make your life better. So starting with me, starting with us together, brick by brick, we're building this little cozy house, which is Secret Afterparty. Why secret? Secret because I've been isolating a lot since COVID, and as time passes, I don't have any friends, I don't have any family. I live life on my own, by myself. I'm perfectly fine with it, but I've also noticed that I'm spending all my, free time when I'm, fixing something around the house or hiking or jogging or going shopping or whatever. I'm spending all that time, since I'm not talking to anyone on the phone and I'm not, meeting any friends or meeting any family. I have been basically, even though it's a one-way interaction, it's still an interaction. I've been listening to all these podcasts, and they have kind of become my friends in the sense of spending time with people, getting to know people. So I did that so much that I decided I'm going to start my own podcast, and I want it to have that feeling that even though it's secret, so even though nobody knows that I'm doing this, not a single person knows that I'm doing this. Not even the guy that I went to the shop to buy any piece of equipment. It's not like, hey, yeah, I'm buying this because I'm doing a podcast or I'm doing a YouTube channel or whatever. No. So it's completely spontaneous, on my own, without nobody knowing about it, without anybody knowing about it. And so it's not like I'm, advertising it on my, personal social media page or whatever. No, it's literally, I shoot this video, I publish it on my channel, and just, wait for somebody to notice, somebody to click. So whoever you are, thank you, because you're the first viewer. You're the first one to click on that thumbnail and watch this. And I welcome you to this new reality. So that's kind of the story behind that. And the second word, after party, is because the after party often is much better than the actual party. A lot of times, I've gone directly to the after party without going to the actual party. Sometimes I would skip the party that would start at midnight and end at 5 a.m. And I would go directly to the after party. And I would literally go to bed early and wake up around 3, 4 a.m., have a fresh breakfast with fruits and vegetables, and then go directly to the after party. And it would be beautiful because it would be, morning, sunshine, swimming pool, and everything was more intimate, more comfortable, more cozy. You were in a safe space, and that's the kind of intimacy that I hope what we're doing here can bring you. Because you never know. Everyone is sharing the same human experience, but at the same time, we're all going through different ups and downs, different happy days, different rainy days. So whether you are relaxing on a beach or trying to fall asleep after a hard day's work, it's the enjoyment of getting to know each other, spending time together. And that was the story behind the name Secret Afterparty. Now, why I started this podcast is because I realized that in the last couple of years, I'd say, and especially in the last 12 months, I have been spending all my free time on YouTube, not watching anything crazy, just regular podcasts. And when you're listening to the same people, every day talk about their lives, it gives you such a great understanding of the human experience and what it feels to be alive. And there's all kinds of different podcasts. I don't know what you watch or what you listen to, but I've been trying to watch as many different podcasts as possible. And some have nothing to do with my personal interests or my personal views or my lifestyle, but it's more about discovery, right? It's like you go into a library and you have so much to choose from, and every book is a completely different view on life, a completely different way of doing things. So that's kind of the direction that I was going. Even though I'm saying this is not a podcast, what I am saying is that the thing that influenced me the most to do this, whatever this is, was an endless amount of podcasts. let's review some of the podcasts that I've watched in my research. Now, some podcasts I've done more of a, because I like the podcast. Some just for technical reasons, to understand how different people do different things. And others just to kind of, challenge myself to learn things that, I would never care about, but maybe, I've always kept the door open for, curiosity or whatnot. So I think the podcasts, so there's different varieties of podcasts, right? Definitely definitely a lot of comedy podcasts, and those would be Your Mom's House, the whole YMH podcasts. So on YMH, what's interesting about YMH is they have one channel, like the main channel, but on that one channel, they have, I think, like 4 or 5 different shows, right? You have Your Mom's House, you have Two Bears, One Cave, you have Danny Brown's show, and you have Dr. Drew. No, so that's actually 5, I guess, because Christina Pazsitzky has another podcast, but that one is on her personal channel, or that's like, like a separate thing, like a separate channel. It's not on the YMH channel, So that's interesting because, most people have one podcast on one channel. Some people choose to have that podcast on their personal channel, or they have a podcast, they have a new channel specifically for that podcast. The interesting thing about YMH is they have so many different podcasts all on one channel. That's interesting because, if you research a little bit how allegedly the YouTube algorithm is supposed to work, basically I'm saying basically a lot, the YMH should be risking a lot of viewers, because I think from the algorithm's perspective, the way that the channel has a variety of different podcasts can do 2 things: confuse the viewer that maybe only wants to listen to Danny Brown or only wants to listen to Dr. Drew. And so the viewer might not want to subscribe to that channel, because if the viewer subscribes to that channel, then what happens is he receives, one day a week, he receives the podcast that he or she wants, the Dr. Drew podcast, and the rest of the week he's getting, bombarded with many other podcasts that he or she doesn't want. So that could confuse the viewers. But on the other side, the algorithm can also be confused, because since the algorithm is basically, from what I understood, because as I said, I've never done this before, so I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just learning with you guys as we go along, and I think that's actually going to be part of the more interesting part of the content, the fact that I have no idea what I'm doing. So the algorithm obviously spends its time, digging up, mining all the information, all the data in the content of your videos on YouTube. So obviously, if you're giving different signals that are sometimes parallel but never converge, and you are giving it signals that are contradictory and are also maybe sometimes opposite, then on that side, yes, it can be something that can be to their detriment. But right now, I think they're fine, because that one channel, I think they're like 100 million views away from 1 billion views right now. Could that be? I'm not sure, but I think if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not sure. For example, by the way, we'll talk about equipment after. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting the sound right, because the sound is always important. But so YMH channel is very, very full of stuff, and they're very successful, right? Because they started, Tom Segura and Christina Pazsitzky started after Joe Rogan told them, suggested, gave them the idea, hey, you guys, maybe you guys should do this. So they did it, and they're doing it very, very well. I think their numbers are very, very impressive. And fun fact, Tom Segura and I had the same acting teacher in Hollywood, Janet Alhanti. Hello to Janet. I haven't seen her in a while. I hope she's well. And the other podcasts that I've listened to, sticking to comedy, Whitney Houston's podcast, I think that's called Good For You. And speaking of Whitney, she was a guest on someone else's podcast. This podcast with Kim Congdon and Sara Weinshenk. And that was a wild interview. You guys should go watch that later, because I don't know, what Whitney's situation was during that interview, but it was definitely Whitney at her finest. And you could also notice and realize that it was Whitney Cummings at her finest from the faces of the interviewers, Kim and Sara, who were speechless the whole time. It was basically like a 2-hour Whitney Cummings, one-woman show happening, extravaganza. And a guest that Whitney had on her show, Paul Virzi, that, I didn't know that well before. So after that, I checked out his podcast, and, he's really, really nice guy and really funny. And I think he comes across as such a nice guy that it makes his comedy even better. It makes his jokes even laugh. It makes you laugh more, just because it's coming from a good place. Good intentions, positive, positive vibes, and he also has a podcast now that I didn't know about before, I think it's called the Virzi Effect. And he recently had what's this? The Yannis Pappas. He had Yannis Pappas, and those two together had such good chemistry that they did 2 hours, and Paul did 2 separate videos for them, and they hit it off. I don't know if it's because of the Greek, New York, Sicilian DNA, but I'd love to watch those two like in a sitcom. Would be great, I think. Other podcasts, obviously, is sticking to the comedy world. You have Andrew Schulz with Flagrant, who keeps putting up good numbers, and that's obviously with Akaash, Singh, and Mark, and AlexxMedia, and the fact that it's 4 of them can sometimes be it can sometimes be a bit intense, for 4 guys really going at it. But that's why it's also great. It depends what you're in the mood for. Every person is for a different time of day, every podcast, and definitely, Flagrant is when you're with your homies and you want to shoot it, and, you just want to, really have that kind of like New York, friends banter. So I think, they know exactly what they're doing and what they want. And I think that's like really, really important. You have to know what you want. You can't pretend to be someone else, or, copy what other people are doing. Oh, I need this because that one's doing it, or whatever. So authenticity always wins. That's for sure. And, you can see it in lots of these people. But like the other, like Annie Lederman, she has a really nice, positive way of doing her podcast. She recently changed the name or the podcast itself, a little bit of both. Now it's called Anniewood, and she did a really nice, set. You could see she invested some time and energy and, a little bit of cash, and made it nicer, especially since I went to see her first episode, and it was still Annie, still her energy. I think it was called, at the time, it was called like Meanspiration, and so that was interesting to see, how, someone started. And she had she had Kyle Dunnigan as her first sketch, which I was like, wow, that's great, But other ones, it's even more interesting to find like the smaller ones or the more obscure ones. Another good comedy podcast, of course, is Shane and Matt's Secret Podcast. It has no relation to the Secret Afterparty. I thought about it now that, they have the word secret in it. I don't know why they have the word secret in it, but yeah, it's not related. But they have a great podcast, and it's very, very laid back, and it has that feel like you're literally in their living room with them and stuff. So that's kind of nice. They have a very wide angle shot. So, part of the fun of the video podcast is, you kind of can see more of their expressions, but they just do everything like with a single take, single camera, wide angle, like the whole room wide. So you kind of miss out on maybe all the, body language and facial expressions because the camera's so far away. But, again, that's exactly what they should be doing and what they need to be doing. And it's, working out great as well because, it's fun. Then you have other podcasts that are not necessarily, not necessarily funny, but a lot of the times they can be more funny actually than the comedy podcasts, quote unquote, which are supposedly funny. Especially the funny ones are like the crazy ones, like where, stuff always happens and there's always like, reactions to crazy breaking news, whether it's like Candace Owens with Balenciaga or MILF Manor going off, or like Tim Poole with his crazy bunch of co-hosts that, when they start talking, I'm like, I can like follow them up to a certain point. I think Tim, out of all of them, Tim is the one I can actually understand all the time. But, a lot of the other co-hosts, I just kind of like zone out after 5 minutes because I have no idea. Not because, it's they're boring. I'm sure they're saying lots of interesting things, and I'm trying, I try to, learn and keep up to date, but they're like on another level, on another gear. So that's fun because that's a whole experience, and it's completely different from my world, but that's the fun of being able to find new things, online. Another one, so that's okay. So the interesting thing about Tim is that it's live, and I've had thoughts about doing live or not doing live. There's pros and cons. Obviously, Tim knows exactly what he is, what he's doing. So I'm like slowly falling, melting into my armchair couch. The live is tricky, I'm sure if he's doing it that well, there sure are lots of more pros than cons for him. The tricky thing about live, obviously, that being live, I think for a lot of things, doing it live can have more limits, both technically and creatively. But he's managed to do it, and he's doing it really well. Another podcast that is live that has nothing to do with comedy, but is actually also very funny, is the I think it's like a relationship podcast, and I have that's the only online thing related to relationships that I've ever seen. Like, that's not something I like. Research is stuff about how to be in a relationship or whatever, but she does it very well, and her name is Pearl something, I don't know. I think the show's called, the channel's called Pearly Things, and she does basically mostly all live, and that's funny because it's about relationships, and she has some very strange people on, and I think she's playing volleyball in London. So it's funny because here's this kind of like all-American redhead girl, and she's in the studio talking about relationships with these like super British people. And it's funny. The exchanges are very funny. Other podcasts, there's a lot of podcasts that are done really well. One thing that's, I guess it's a podcast, and he does it in as well as Skeptic Tank, Eli. Why am I calling him Eli? He just had his special Jew out. Ari, not Eli. It was 2 syllables, but no. Yeah, Ari Shaffir. I think it's called Skeptic Tank. And it's funky. I especially love how he's, compared to the other ones that are more like studio based, Ari's definitely more like, how do you say, more adventurous. Like, he's just like, sometimes shoots, especially the intros, like walking in a park or, something more like external. Some of the favorite, the ones I've liked the most that he's done are, for example, the one with Jay Okerson, and they're just like sitting in his balcony. I think it's like the East Village or Lower East Side or something, just like smoking with the sunset. So that's really nice. The fact that Ari uses, natural sunlight and he's outside. Not so much when it's really sunny. And that was like the episode with Joe List and Louis C.K. promoting their new film, and I think that was like way too much sun, and there was some guests that it was just too much sun. It was like bothering them. The lighting was off, the camera, but that's a risk you take when you shoot outside. I'd love to shoot outside, but again, it depends more on technical stuff, not really on creative stuff, because obviously, outside there's lots of more options creatively, but on the technical side, you want to be able to, how do you say, control the creative tools you have. Apart from that, the equipment side of things is really a DIY thing, because these are bits and pieces I've collected throughout the years, like the mic and the audio interface. Those two things I bought years ago at Guitar Center next to Union Square, and that was for some vocals I was doing for Nicholas Jar at the time, and I just used it for those vocals for Nicholas that time. And I never used the mic again. I never used the interface again. I have another I had another interface. It stopped working, so I used this again. The microphone has fell on the floor so many times in the past. I was sure it was not going to work. So again, nothing fancy. Like the audio interface, like my Focusrite is broken. It was better quality, but it's broken. So I'm just using like literally the basic like M audio, whatever. I'm not a tech guy, so it's actually fun for me to do tell you what equipment I'm using, because I feel like I'm doing some tech review stuff that I have no idea about. What else? The camera, I had a really good Leica camera that I was really excited about using. But even though it's like, super high quality and all that, it doesn't enable you to record for more than like 29 minutes. I have no idea why. I went online on all these forums, and a lot of other people had the same issue. So I was like, okay, I tried to, think about recording a couple of times short, but it's like, I want this to be, like I said, something cozy, something comfortable. I don't want to be sitting there, counting down the time with the chronometer, like, oh my God, I can only do 29-minute videos or stuff like that. And yes, you can obviously edit them together and post and have, a super long podcast and stuff. But it's the technical is only up to a certain point. The creative needs the openness, the ability to go beyond, to not have any restrictions, even though those restrictions may be surpassed in post-production. You still want to be able to not think about production, especially when you're alone. You don't have a producer or anyone behind the camera. So either you take care of it, or it's no one's going to take care of it. So what are your options? There are no options. You either do it or you're not doing it. So that's the other thing. Since I couldn't use the camera, the Leica, I'm literally using my phone, and I have no idea how much the battery will last for this kind of thing. So, because the phone is also attached to the audio interface, and since the audio interface is very, very cheap, it doesn't even have its own charging unit. So literally the phone is simultaneously recording my video, charging the audio interface, and receiving the microphone's audio. And same thing with the tripod. I have a pretty good Manfrotto, professional tripod. But again, while I was studying the setup and how to set it up and the production and stuff, I thought I just wanted to do something just easier and on the go. And so instead of having the huge tripod taking over the place, I used a super small, super cheap tripod that I hope that looks like it's working. As long as it's not falling, that probably means it's working. So that's more or less the setup. In terms of lighting, I'm literally just using 3 house lights. I just changed the light bulbs to kind of have more organic feel to it, because they had different light bulbs with different kind of shades and stuff. So I just got the same type of light bulb for all 3 at different intensities. Not much else. There's lots of things you can do to start out, but honestly, it is simple and it's not in terms of preparing, in terms of the production, the equipment side of it. I mean, it is pretty self-explanatory, but since you can always do better, you can always improve, it can become, there's a lot of steps to follow and a lot of little things that you need to remember. So especially when you're starting out doing something you've never done before, you have to spend some time like memorizing stuff and little things, because you know how it is in a production, whether it's a small production or a big production. If one thing is off, that ruins the work, the performance, the piece, whatever it is. Everything else might be perfect, but that one thing might, ruin it, the whole thing for the whole, how do you say, like just the whole thing, So that's about it. And, talking to camera, it's always, a different experience, because, most people don't grow up talking to the camera. At least, in my generation, obviously today is completely different. So obviously, people have been talking to a camera, to their phone, to their computer, their webcam, whatever, since they were children or teenagers. So that's a different experience in terms of just literally sitting down and talking to you, whoever you may be, and, being able to trying to be able to do that in a simple and honest way. Obviously, the more you think about it, the more, the more self-conscious you can become, and, that can obviously become an obstacle. But, if you're just trying to, if you're not trying to be anybody else, you're just trying to be yourself, and you're not, less is more. Let's put it that way, So I try to follow that motto, Probably most of the times I fail. Probably most of the times, I want to overdo things. I want to make sure, have everything be perfect, or, overthink things or overcomplicate things. So it's always a daily exercise of focusing on what's really essential in a situation. What really matters? Does it matter the fact that, I bought the cheapest possible, what is it? The mic stand? Like, this was literally the cheapest mic stand. So I'm having doubts, how long is it going to last? Will it fall on my lap by the end of this video? Will I need to buy another one by the end of the week? Who knows? But the important thing is to just do it, right? Just do it. Worst thing that can happen is it falls, it breaks, you buy another one, you move on. Same thing with the pop filter. Now, this is, as I said, I'm not a professional, so I'm literally using the good old DIY philosophy and just, rigging things together. This is obviously not the ideal pop filter, but it works really well, and I already had it, and I thought about, should I just buy, because they have those nice ones, like this nice smaller ones that just cover the mic. That way you could, see my mouth and see my face better. Not because, I have a beautiful mouth or a beautiful face, but simply because obviously it's nicer when I'm watching someone's podcast. It's nicer to see, their face instead of, half their face being covered by a microphone or something. And actually, in terms of sound, the headphones I had headphones, but they were like DJ headphones, so they were like destroyed through the years. So literally the headphones have only one phone. Is a headphone called a headphone because it has two phones? Like, is this a phone? And is this a phone? Because headphones is plural, right? It's like pants. So if pants is plural because there's two legs, two pants, it's not called the pant. I'm going shopping. I bought a pant. It's called pants. Maybe that's why headphones is called headphones, because each one of these is a phone. Maybe we learned something new today. Maybe we didn't, but at least we could say that we did. And if they ask, we might lie. We might tell them that we learned something more complicated than just why headphones are headphones. And again, these are like the most simple ones I could find. I was going to find the ones that I had before that were like the best, the kind of like at least used to be like the industry standard best, like the Sony ones. But the thing with the Sony ones is they had like the blue, you've seen it before, like the blue stickers on the phones, like the blue and gold stickers with the logo and stuff. And even though the sound is good, I don't like seeing it. I don't like to, when I sing it on other people. And so, I love the headphones, but it's just a distraction, in general. Like, you're wearing a black thing, but it has like a shiny blue thing on top of it. I don't know. Again, less is more. So I just went with this black one. In terms of chairs, I was going to use an office chair. I tried to use the office chair, and then I thought to myself, I spend all day, every day on that office chair. Do I really want to do a podcast on an office chair? I was going to do it, sitting on the office chair, at my desk with the camera behind my desk, on the other side of the desk, very professional, whatever. But it's like, that's not what I'm going for. Like, number one, that's not how I feel. Number two, that's not how I want you to feel. And also the whole desk thing, conceptually, to have a desk separating the subject from the camera, it does create a distance, even though you're not here, you're literally not here, like, physically. The tripod, behind the desk, having the desk between us, it reminded me of, I think, what's his name? Bill Evans is a jazz. I think Bill Evans is a jazz musician or something. No, Evans, the Paramount guy, There's that really great documentary, Keep the Kid in the Picture. Bob Evans. I think it's Bob Evans. I'm pretty sure. I don't have my phone on me because it's recording us right now. Yeah, he said, and he was doing the biggest films ever in the 70s. I think he was behind when he was the head of Paramount, he was behind Godfather. Then I think he did Love Story, and his wife started in it, but she ran away with the male lead. But Bob Evans said, even though he was doing huge business deals, on the couch, he never used a table, because he said, you do better deals when you're sitting on the couch and there's a direct contact, and you don't have like desk between you. So I didn't want to have a desk between you and I, so I decided for this much more comfortable arrangement for us both. And leave your comments if you have any questions or about anything that we've talked about tonight. I don't know if you have any questions about equipment. This is tech information coming from a zero tech guy. I am not a tech geek. I don't know anything about tech. So if you want a perspective from someone who probably has the same experience as you and the same level of knowledge, let me know. And the other thing is how to use the channel, right? We don't know what we're going to do with the channel. I don't know. I keep saying we. Well, me and you, I guess, because that's the only we that there is. But the future of the channel, I'm definitely looking forward to starting to do some interviews, and that will be fun. I'm probably not going to do any lives. I was thinking about doing this channel as a live channel, but again, after kind of researching the other people and seeing what the other people were doing, and seeing the pros and cons of the live production, I prefer the recorded video, simply because the live you have less creative control over it, and the live also, the energy is different. Obviously the live has better in the moment energy, but since I am doing this with a long-term mission, my vision is more about how can I make content that has a long-term value And I think that because of different things, for different reasons, the ability to record a video and then publish it gives me as a creator a lot more tools to work with. Obviously, my whole philosophy behind this is to edit as less as possible, ideally having just, single take videos, just because I think it flows a million times better, and it's much more natural, and than doing it with a lot of cuts in between or different angles or whatever. Then it becomes more like, what are you trying to do? More like a TV show or something. Yes, I understand you're always trying to keep the audience alive, not get the audience be bored, stuff like that. But I think the ability to do that in terms of the video is much better. Also because the value is more valuable in the long term, meaning that if you create something that has high value for that moment or for that era or for that year, it has a higher possibility of not being of the same level of value in the future. Basically, from my experience, something that has a higher than average value in the moment that it's created usually has is inversely proportionate to the value that same thing will have in the long term. You know what I mean? Like, if a song goes, if a song becomes a super bestseller, most of the time, if you listen to that same song in 10, 20 years, it's horrible. Similarly, like a video, like if you watch like a super viral video, yes, you can watch that video, but in the moment it can like be like a wow video. It represents the zeitgeist and it's super crazy and it's like, wow, I can't believe you did this. And then that same video has less value in the future because all it was a really good mirror, a very shiny mirror to those times, which has its own value. But the value then only becomes it becomes a prisoner to its own times, in a way that another type of content that might reflect less those times but have a more universal appeal and maybe a more modest growth, but a more universal, broad. And broad doesn't necessarily mean sellout. Broad could mean something that is broad not just in terms of demographics, but broad in time, long term. That's what classic the meaning of classic is, right? Something that, like classical music, classical music is really classical in the sense that it is a piece of content. It is an art form that is equally great in the moment it was made as it is in 100, 200, 400 years. I mean, I love classical music, and when I listen to it, a lot of the times I'm enjoying it much more than the latest song on the top of the Billboard charts, So that's classical, and has some kind of snobby connotations because of some, silly prejudice that some people have culturally, that, that's classical, that must be about being snobby or luxury or something unattainable or whatever. No. Classical, it means something that has value and that doesn't lose value with time. Most of the time, it actually increases in value. So, that's all it is. Something that, at the very least, can maintain its value. That's already a miracle in this world. I mean, you see the trash that we are bombarded with and surrounded with every day in our daily life. So the best thing that we can do is try to add value to whatever we do. Value isn't just about culture or art. Value is about being able to optimize the human experience and life itself, and being able to finding love in a song, in a video, in a person, finding love in a secret after party. Thanks for joining us for this first episode. Please click the subscribe button and the bell for notification. Smash the like button and say hello in our comments.